Dr. Oz began the new season of his show by telling his viewers that he and his siblings missed all the signs of their own mother's Alzheimer's. Do you know what to look for? Do you think you'd catch it? My name is Karen Brown. I'm the publisher and editor of The Oldish, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this week's edition of The Oldish TV. Now, everybody, as they age, becomes afraid of Alzheimer's or some kind of dementia affecting their lives. We try to hide it if we forget something, if we lose the keys or walk into a room and forget why we came into the room. We all think, oh my gosh, it's the beginning of that slippery slope. And not necessarily so. But I know that we do read articles, The Oldish has published several, that establish links between Alzheimer's and things like diet, exercise, high glucose levels, high blood pressure, all kinds of things. The list goes on. And while researchers are working on drugs and blood tests that they hope will eventually provide a bit of an earlier diagnosis than we are able to establish now, it's a ways off. And so right now, we have to be aware of the signs and symptoms and hopefully catch it early enough that treatment can be an intervention that makes a difference in the path of Alzheimer's for somebody that we love. Now, Dr. Oz is a physician, and while he has gained fame for his TV show, he is actually a practicing physician, directing the Cardiovascular Institute and Complementary Medicine program at New York Presbyterian Hospital. He's also a professor at Columbia University. Yet he and his siblings missed all the signs. There's a reason why doctors don't treat family members, but the children and spouses and siblings of aging seniors, are they too close to remain objective and catch it all? Let's look at some of the top signs to look for, and then you'll have just a little bit better knowledge about what to look for if you don't already. Changes in mood or personality. So not that one day that some of us have, I suppose all of us have, every now and then. We're talking about something that is a severe mood swing that isn't typical of that person. So we're not talking about being annoyed because your routine is disrupted. We're talking about something far more severe. Suspicion, being fearful, being anxious at home or in an environment that is really familiar to them, and yet they start behaving very differently than what you would normally expect. Next, poor judgment or decreased judgment. For example, putting on summer shorts and sandals to go outside when there's 6 feet of snow. Or the opposite, like now it's the early fall here, and if I were to put on a heavy winter parka and boots to go outside when it's actually 25 degrees Celsius, that would be poor judgment. Making a mistake now and then is not the same thing and shouldn't be confused with Alzheimer's. Disorientation with time or space, so not knowing what day of the week it is, or getting lost in an area that's very familiar. What isn't Alzheimer's? Forgetting the day of the week and remembering it later. For instance, we had a holiday weekend just a short while ago, and when I was thinking it was Tuesday, it was actually Wednesday, but I was able to catch myself and correct that and realize that I actually had lost a day in the week, so not to get upset about it. Problem-solving skills can present challenges to people who are in the early stages of Alzheimer's, forgetting to do something that they've done their whole lives, like making toast, getting dressed, or making a phone call. Making an occasional error on a bill payment is not the same thing and shouldn't be confused with Alzheimer's. Language problems, forgetting words, or using words that don't fit or are completely out of context with the sentence that is being said. Occasionally having trouble with finding the right word is not Alzheimer's. I know that happens to me a lot. And in fact, we published an article on The Oldish a while ago that indicated that there was a study showing that the older we live, the more crammed our brain gets with facts and figures and names and dates and all kinds of things. And so their theory was that in actual fact, it's not dementia or Alzheimer's that is making us forget. It's the processes in our brain that have to sift through all this information, much like a computer hard drive, to find the specific piece of information we need. That made me feel better for sure. So, if you forget a word the odd time, don't worry about it. But this business of using words that are completely out of context and seeming to believe that they fit what you're trying to communicate. That's not normal. Problems with abstract thinking, like the numbers on a calculator or a calendar. This isn't like the time it takes for an older adult to grasp how a new technology works, but something like a calculator that most of us have used our entire lives. If a person starts not understanding what this means, what the numbers on the calculator mean, that could be a sign that needs to be looked for. Misplacing things. And here we're not talking about putting down the car keys and then just forgetting where they are for a short while. We're talking about putting things in places where they don't belong, like putting a mixing bowl into a freezer instead of the cupboard, putting eyeglasses in a washing machine, or maybe putting the newspaper in the bathtub. Completely disconnected places for those objects. If you misplace something and retrace your steps to find it, that's not Alzheimer's. Loss of initiative. So losing interest in seeing friends or doing favorite activities could be a sign of Alzheimer's. Not now and then, but a consistent loss in interest or ability to keep up with how an activity, like a favorite card game, might be played. If you notice any of these signs, don't panic. A thorough checkup is actually what is in order next. Contact the family physician and make an appointment. Make sure that the physician knows what you're coming in for or what you're bringing your loved one in for. Having eyesight and hearing checkups done is also really important. Could be an important part of the process because you want to rule out the possibility that poor eyesight, they just can't see what's in front of them. They can't see those numbers on a calculator. Or hearing problems. Hearing loss can often lead to social isolation, which can lead to depression and other kinds of problems, a disengagement with the world around them. So having that hearing checked, and maybe it's as simple as getting a hearing aid or a new hearing aid or wearing that hearing aid that was already prescribed. It's frustrating and to not be able to be engaged with the world. So you want to make sure that all of these things are taken care of. Ruling out other causes will really help with the diagnosis of Alzheimer's and help you to move forward. If the doctor does rule everything out and Alzheimer's is the diagnosis, then you'll know sooner than later, and that's a good thing. There are techniques and drugs and lots of support available as the process moves forward. Planning ahead is also crucial. Once you know the diagnosis and understand it, you can know what to look for in the various stages. So making sure that your loved one is cared for appropriately, making sure that all of the legal pieces are in place. For instance, if mom or dad doesn't have a will, now's the time to do it so that when they're in one of their good periods, they can take care of that paperwork and sign it properly to make sure that their wishes are honored as you go forward. You also want to make sure that the whole family is on board. It is not at all unusual for a family member to be in complete denial that this is what is happening to mom or dad. And you want to make sure that you bring them on board so that they can be helpful with the process as you move ahead. Now, there are lots of articles at theoldish.com about Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. Go to theoldish.com and type in the search bar Alzheimer's, and you'll see everything we've got. While you're on that website, let me point you to a couple of articles that we published recently that I think might be of interest to you. On our End of Life channel, there is a very important article about giving up too much information in funeral details. We don't want to compound a sad event by giving the bad guys too much information about who's not home and when. Over on our Oldish Living channel, there's information you might want if you get invited to a Botox party. Yes, those are a thing. If you haven't been invited yet, the day may come when you are invited, so you want to know what to look for. Over on our Caregiver Central channel, we have an article about the impact of caregiving on working women. It's very important to understand our own limits. Well, that is our show for today, and I am very grateful that you have joined us. If your preferred social platform is Facebook, along with Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, well, you will find us there, and we hope that you will visit us. In the meantime, until next week, take care of one another And do remember that it takes a village to age a senior.